One ruled the dark casinos of Las Vegas with violence and fear. The other helped build the modern American Mafia itself. Decades apart, Tony Spilotro and Vito Genovese became two of the most feared names in organized crime history. One controlled the streets through brutal intimidation. The other manipulated power from the shadows like a kingmaker. Together, their stories reveal how the Mafia evolved from secret criminal families into a nationwide empire built on money, murder, and absolute loyalty. Vito Genovese was born in Italy in 1897 before immigrating to New York as a young boy. At the time, organized crime in America was still chaotic, divided between gangs fighting for territory across the streets of New York City. But Genovese wasn't just another gangster. He was ambitious, intelligent, and extremely ruthless. By the 1920s and 30s, Genovese became deeply connected to powerful leaders during the Castellamarese War, where mafia factions battled for control. When the violence finally ended, a new system emerged, the Five Families, and Vito Genovese became a central figure. Genovese believed organized crime should operate like a corporation. Gambling, extortion, and labor racketeering became part of the empire. But power inside the mafia was never stable. Rivals disappeared, enemies were eliminated, and loyalty was enforced through fear. By the 1950s, Genovese had positioned himself as one of the most powerful mafia bosses in America, his influence stretching far beyond New York. But his hunger for power created dangerous enemies, both inside the mafia and within law enforcement. In 1957, dozens of powerful mafia bosses secretly gathered at a meeting in Appalachian, New York. Authorities unexpectedly discovered them. As police surrounded the property, mob bosses fled into the woods and nearby fields trying to escape. The incident shocked America. For years, the FBI had publicly downplayed a national mafia. Now the evidence was impossible to ignore, and Genovese was at the center. Decades later, another mafia figure would rise to power in a very different world, Las Vegas. Tony Spilotro. Tony Spilotro grew up in Chicago and quickly gained a reputation for violence. Unlike Genovese, Spilotro was unpredictable and explosive. The Chicago outfit eventually sent him to Las Vegas to protect the organization's casino interests and oversee business. Officially, he was there for business. Unofficially, he was there to control the city through fear. During the 1970s, Spilotro was linked to illegal skimming operations where millions were secretly stolen from casinos before reports were filed. But Spilotro's methods brought attention: violence, robberies, and extortion. Law enforcement pressure intensified. At the same time, tensions inside the mafia were growing. Some leaders believed Spilotro had become reckless and too difficult to control. In 1986, Tony Spilotro and his brother Michael disappeared near Chicago. Days later, they were found buried in an Indiana cornfield. Authorities believed the murders were ordered by mafia leadership. The message was clear: even powerful figures could be eliminated. Vito Genovese's downfall came differently. Convicted on narcotics charges, he died behind bars in 1969 after years of investigation. Both men had built enormous criminal power, and both lost everything to the same world that made them dangerous. Genovese shaped the mafia's structure. Spilotro exposed its violence. Different eras, different methods, but the same brutal world. Decades later, their names still remain symbols of how organized crime built an empire through fear, loyalty, and betrayal.